I read from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 2, Text 13. Ekaikasya nagani dhyanubhavayat Padadhyavatashitam gadabhita Jitam jitam shtanam apohaya darayat Param param siddhyati dhyata yata Eyashon nagani dhyanubhavayat Padadhyavatashitam gadabhita Jitam jitam shtanam apohaya darayat Param param siddhyati dhyata yata Ekaikasyo Ekasya, one to one or one after another. Angani, limbs. Diya, by attention. Anubhavayat, meditate upon. Pada adi, legs. Yavat, until. Hashitam, smiling. Gadabhitaha, the personality of Godhead. Jitam jitam, gradually control the mind. Shtanam, place. Apoya, leaving. Daryat, meditate upon. Param param, higher and higher. Siddhyati, purified. Di, intelligence. Yata yata, as much as. Translation. The process of meditation should begin from the lotus feet of the Lord and progress to his smiling face. The meditation should be concentrated upon the lotus feet, then the calves, then the thighs, in this way higher and higher. The more the mind becomes fixed upon the different parts of the limbs, one after another, the more the intelligence becomes purified. Thought. The process of meditation recommended in the Srimad Bhagavatam is not to fix one's attention on something impersonal or void. The meditation should concentrate on the person of the Supreme Godhead, either in his Virat Rupa, the gigantic universal form, or in his Satchitananda Vigraha as described in the scriptures. There are authorized descriptions of Vishnu forms, and there are authorized representations of deities in the temples. Thus one can practice meditating upon the deity, concentrating his mind on the lotus feet of the Lord, gradually rising higher and higher to his smiling face. According to the Bhagavat school, the Lord's rasa dancing is the smiling face of the Lord. Since it is recommended in this verse that one should gradually progress from the lotus feet up to the smiling face, we shall not jump at once to understanding the Lord's pastimes and the rasa dance. It is better to practice concentrating our attention by offering flowers and tulsi to the lotus feet of the Lord. In this way we gradually become purified by the archana process. We dress the Lord, bathe him, etc., and all these transcendental activities help us purify our existence. When we reach the highest standard of purification, we can see the smiling face of the Lord or hear the rasa dance pastime of the Lord. Then we can relish his activities. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, therefore, the rasa dance pastimes are delineated in the 10th canto. The more one concentrates on the transcendental form of the Lord, either on his lotus feet, the calves, the thighs, or the chest, the more one becomes purified. In this verse it is clearly stated, the more the intelligence becomes purified, which means the more one becomes detached from sense gratification. Our intelligence in the present conditioned state of life is impure due to being engaged in sense gratification. The result of meditation on the transcendental form of the Lord will be manifested by one's detachment from sense gratification. Therefore, the ultimate purpose of meditation is purification of one's intelligence. Those who are too engrossed in sense gratification cannot be allowed to participate in archana or to touch the transcendental form of the Radha Krishna or Vishnu deities. For them it is better to meditate upon the gigantic Virat Rupa of the Lord as recommended in the next verse. The impersonalists and the voidlists are therefore recommended to meditate upon the universal form of the Lord, whereas the devotees are recommended to meditate on the deity worship in the temple, because the impersonalists and the voidlists are not sufficiently purified in their spiritual activities. Archana is not meant for them. Om Agyantamarandasya Jananjana Sulakaya Chaksuvanmalitamyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Srila Prabhupada mentions many different points here. It would be impossible to cover all these different points. But in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says here in the 6th chapter, from wherever the mind wanders due to its flickering and unsteady nature, one must certainly withdraw it and bring it back under the control of the self. And it's explained there in the Bhagavad Gita, the mind, the nature of the mind. It's flickering, restless, turbulent, obstinate, very strong. Actually, the mind, more difficult to control than the raging wind. However, a self-realized yogi has to control the mind. The mind should not control him. And of course there's other verses too, like explains in the Bhagavad Gita that the lamp, as a lamp in a windless place does not waver, so the transcendentalist whose mind is controlled remains always steady in his meditation on the Supreme Lord. Because in our bhakti school we learn the best way to control the mind is to fix the mind on the Supreme Lord. Either in his archer incarnation in the temple. Also, the best way to control the mind and to completely purify the mind is to rest the mind in the sound vibration of Krishna's holy name. That will not only soothe the turbulent mind, but it will completely purify the mind. And then one's natural spiritual nature and consciousness will be awakened. So this meditation, it's an important topic. The question that we may ask is, how are you doing with your relationship with your mind? You sometimes find it just racing around from thought to thought. Do you find it hard to concentrate on things? You've got too much to think about. So, as I said, the Bhagavad Gita explains the nature of the mind. How our turbulent mind is just taking us anywhere and everywhere, giving us no peace or happiness. My mind is telling us, the happiness is here, happiness is there. So some people, they get some relief from their restless mind, some mental relief. Some people take intoxication. It's unbelievable how many people now, the whole world is just swimming in intoxication. There's just like trillions and trillions of dollars just spent on intoxication every day. Some people just absorb their mind in the TV. They just sit in front of the TV. I know sometimes I go and visit my mother, and the TV's on just all day, all night. The only time I get to talk to her is when the commercials come on. She talks to me. The rest of the time it's just. And they say that when you're watching the TV, you go into an alpha state, which is very similar to someone who's completely unconscious. Some people just absorb themselves in the internet, People absorb themselves in mundane novels, and there's a big problem today, about mothers are really concerned about their children because they spend like 8-10 hours a day just on the internet playing these war games. They can't get there. They just have to take them in some food there. They can't get off. They're just locked into these war games. And they just take them in some food. They're eating the food. They're still playing. They can't stop. Like 8 hours a day. They can't work. They can't function like normal people. They just... other people, you see they're absorbed in so many things. Newspapers, magazines, sports events. But so other people, they find that meditation is a better way. In fact, you see that actually millions of people, young and old, in countries all over the modern world, are getting into this meditation. They're meditating in Paris, in New York, in London, in Moscow, Sydney, Singapore. And more likely than not, one of your friends or relatives is a meditator. And the motive of many meditators is simply to relieve stress. And meditation actually does, in fact, relieve stress. I know back in the 60s and 70s, there was the Maharishi Yogi, and he used to teach this meditation, and a lot of people getting into this meditation. And the benefits you get from able to free your mind from everyday cares and worries, it's enormous. You can feel enlightened, refreshed, focused. Actually, they even found people studying at university, meditation helps them to focus on their studies, fix their minds. So although these may sound like wonderful achievements, the actual purpose of meditation goes, far beyond just trying to get some relief from the mind's agitation. In our bhakti scriptures, we learn that the ultimate goal of meditation is actually enlightenment, to understand and realize the absolute truth about the self, about the universe, about the Supreme Lord. But to get the highest benefit from meditation depends on performing the right kind of meditation in the right way. And the goals of various meditators can be divided into 3 categories in terms of their understanding of the self, the Supreme, and the universe. Prabhupada mentions here the voidists and the impersonalists. So first we had the voidist meditators. And the second we have the impersonal meditators, and the third we have the personalists, or you could say the devotee meditators. So the voidists, they teach that through meditation we can understand and become enlightened and understand that ultimately there's no soul, there's no God, there's no universe. And as long as we perceive these things, we suffer. So the goal of these meditators is just a state of nothingness, of voidness called nirvana, in which all suffering ceases. Actually, I remember Bhakti Taru Swami was talking about this once in Mayapur, and he was explaining how, the Buddhists, they're into this voidism. And the very old Buddhists, they put them in these caves, and they just brick up the caves. They just leave a little hole there so they can take them some food. and they just want to just get right into this nothingness, no feelings, no emotions. And because they have this desire just to become nothing, just to become totally an inert being, that there's a Vedic scripture that explains that in their next life they may take birth as rocks or stones. Apparently some stones and rocks have souls, but they have practically no consciousness. They're just practically inert beings. So they just want to merge into nothingness of nirvana. It's actually an attempt to escape the difficulties we experience in living in this complicated world and experiencing frustrated material desires. So this concept of oblivion or nothingness is attractive to some people, but it's just, when you think about it, it's pretty illogical that everything arose from nothing and everything is just nothing. And the impersonalists, they believe that through meditation we can understand that individual spiritual existence is just a complete illusion. For them the Supreme does exist, but not as a person, but just as this impersonal, effulgent kind of white light they call Brahman. So they say they believe that in a state of total enlightenment, the individual self just merges into the existence of this impersonal effulgence and becomes God, becomes the Supreme. So impersonalism is just like in voidism, is actually a reaction to the frustration of not finding happiness in this world. The frustration of unfulfilled material desires. Therefore they simply try to merge with the Supreme, like a drop of water merges with the ocean to escape the difficulties of life. So this philosophy of impersonalism is also very illogical. Actually Ramanuja Acharya, he wrote 108 refutations against the impersonal philosophy, and one of those refutations was that just as so many waves splashed within the great ocean, does any single wave ever become the ocean? Very illogical. So obviously we can never become God. Bhagavad Gita tells us that God means the controller of all living beings, that no one is equal to or greater than the Supreme Lord. And Bhagavad Gita, of course, Krishna, he states that he himself is a supreme individual person. So that all of us, we are eternal individual souls who are fragmental parts and parcels of the Supreme, infinitesimal parts of the infinite Supreme Being. That we never lose our identity as an individual soul. Even after liberation from the cycle of birth and death, we don't merge with the Supreme. Rather, we attain our svarup, our eternal spiritual form, in which we can directly serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the spiritual world. So in this way, the personalists or the devotees, they just see themselves as eternal lovers of an eternally existing Supreme Being, Krishna, who possesses all attractive personal features and qualities and engages in transcendental pastimes. And they consider both themselves, the individual soul, the world around them, both real and divine, the created energy of the Supreme, a reflection of that eternal existing spiritual world. So you could say that in Bhakti Yoga we are invited to redefine ourselves, as eternal souls, as perfect parts of the Supreme, possessing a divine nature in relation to the Supreme. So, and when this divine nature is fully awakened, we can transcend this material world and we can return to our original home in the spiritual world, where we can live eternally. So this is, we can see that and of course, Prabhupada here is talking about the intelligence, how we have to purify. So, this, and it mentions here that the impersonalists, the voidists, the sense gratifiers, the materialists, because their brains cannot accommodate this idea of the Lord having a personal form, they can meditate. Best they meditate on the Virat Rupa manifestation of the Lord. And actually Prabhupada mentions in the Bhagavatam that this manifestation of the Lord, because, anything that exists, either material or spiritual, is an expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Just like Prabhupada gives the example of the sun and its rays. You have the sun globe and you have the rays which just permeate entire creation, the cosmic creation. So similarly, the Lord, he's living in Goloka Vrindavan, enjoying his transcendental pastimes eternally. But he expands himself by his manifold energies, anywhere and everywhere. So the less intelligent persons, Prabhupada mentions, who cannot conceive of the Lord's form, they're astounded by his different energies. They have great awe and reverence. Some of you may have seen those David Attenborough. Is he the one that made all those films, documentaries about just creation? I sometimes say it's just incredible facets of material nature. The way the animals and the species of life, how they live and how they exist, and all the incredible oceans and rivers and mountains, and it's just unbelievable. And people are awestruck by these things. The lightning, the incredible strength of the tiger and the elephant, and the ocean, the vastness of the ocean, and all these things. So just by having that awe and respect for these things, people become purified. They become purified, and in the future they can come to the point where they can see and accept a transcendental form of the Lord. Actually, Prabhupada mentions that this form of the Lord is actually it's a challenge to the atheists and a favour for the asuras. It's a challenge to the atheists, people who claim to be God. Then let them show their universal form. Actually, once we were out doing books in Brisbane, and we met this guy, and he claimed that he was God. Well, we said, well, let's see your universal form. And we're standing there, and we're waiting, and after a while he said, well, we didn't see it. We said, where's the universal form? He said, didn't you see it? You don't have the eyes. You don't have the eyes. So a lot of and so it's a favour. It's a favour for the. So Prabhupada mentions here, talking about the intelligence, about how we have to purify the intelligence by meditating on the Supreme Lord. And there's a sloka in the Bhagavad Gita in the second chapter that just tells that one who restrains his senses, keeping them under full control, and fixes his consciousness upon me, Krishna says, is known of a man of unsteady intelligence. So Krishna tells us there in the Bhagavad Gita that one who is not connected to the Supreme can have neither transcendental intelligence nor a peaceful mind, without which there's no possibility of peace. And without peace, there cannot be any real happiness. So Bhagavad Gita recommends that we discipline our intelligence to control the mind, which in turn controls the senses, then fix our consciousness upon the Supreme Lord. And one who has succeeded in both is known as a person of unsteady intelligence. So this is one of our goals. We want to purify the intelligence. We want to steady the intelligence. We want to fix our intelligence on Krishna. Because in regards to intelligence, we may wonder, some people wonder, what is intelligence? How do you define or measure intelligence? Well, where does it come from? Why is it that some people seem to be gifted with incredibly high intelligence, while others just are not so gifted? Or why, despite having adequate intelligence, people suffer from the ability to act and think rationally? So when we look into the Bhagavad Gita philosophy, we find the answers to all these questions. When you start studying these Vedic literatures, you realise that there's a lot more going on in this universe that I don't know about. Such an incredible depth of knowledge there. So intelligence is such a vital gift. In all species of life, our Creator has given us our intelligence, without which we couldn't possibly survive. Even to do the simplest things, even just to lift this, requires intelligence. You see some people that their intelligence is deranged or lost. They can't even function. They need, they have to be personally cared for at every moment. And we see that using their intelligence, all species of life, humans, animals, birds, aquatics, insects, they eat, they mate, they defend, they build their little homes, they find their food, enjoy their senses in various ways. So where does this intelligence originate? Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells us that he is the intelligence of the intelligent. To the beginning of creation, he entered into the hearts of all living entities, and from there, he's supplying everyone their intelligence according to their needs and according to their desires. And Prabhupada explained, just as a father, directs the son. So similarly, the Supreme Lord is the Paramatma within our heart. He's supplying our intelligence according to our desires. So the point is, whatever we desire to do or accomplish in life, we're completely dependent on the direction of the Supreme Lord within our heart. And he's given everyone, especially us humans, free will and independence, which means we have an amazing scope for making choices, for making decisions. So ultimately it's up to each of us to decide how we're going to use our intelligence. Some may use their intelligence to take up a spiritual path and try and go deeper into understanding the nature of reality, try and discover the purpose, the vision and the plan of the Supreme Lord behind this beautiful, amazing creation, and learn how to act in accordance to his cosmic plan. This requires intelligence, and also requires the development of spiritual intelligence. However, on the other hand, someone may use their intelligence to become a thief, or become a cheater or a smuggler. Or one may use his intelligence to become a big philosopher or scientist, an atheist, and try and prove that God doesn't exist. That also requires intelligence. But according to the Bhagavat school, this is a misuse of one's intelligence. This is said to be intelligence which is misdirected. So once again, the point is, whatever we desire to do or accomplish in life, we're completely dependent on the Supreme Lord within our heart. He's supplying our intelligence, he's supplying he's supplying the proper direction. And of course, in regards to higher and lower intelligence, we have to take a look at the laws of karma, how the laws of karma are working. We may think of karma as an aspect of the universe that realigns itself in response to how we live in the universe. It means using our free will and independence, we may choose to act or perform an action, and in accordance to that action, we're bound to a certain reaction, good or bad. These are the laws of karma. It means, ultimately, to a significant extent, we are makers of our own destinies. And through good actions, we create our own rewards, which may come as being born with gifts, such as wealth, good health, fame, beauty, high intelligence, happiness in life, education, success. So the philosophy of karma is provided to help us to intelligently take responsibility for our actions in life, our choices. And life itself is about making choices. Decisions are something, we're making every day. Almost every minute we're making choices and decisions in our life. And the Bhagavad Gita tells us the most important choices we want to make in our life are choices in regards to our highest well-being, our spiritual well-being. It's all part of, seeing to your best future, loving yourself, respecting yourself, taking yourself more seriously. It means trying to utilize our intelligence to seek out and try and understand the absolute truth. Try and understand our spiritual identity and our ultimate purpose in life, and understand who the Supreme Lord is. And of course, the intelligence also has a function. The function of the intelligence, you could say, is the power of discrimination. To be able to decide the value of what we want and what we don't want. To be able to have the power to accept those things which are favourable for our spiritual advancement and reject those things which are unfavourable. So we could say that intelligence holds the reins of the body chariot that guides the mind to distinguish right from wrong, moral from immoral, good from bad, truth from illusion. However, one thing we learn in Krishna consciousness is that if the intelligence is not trained, what happens? It gives in to the mind's demands. Then we may find ourselves suffering the consequences. That we learn that the mind is an amazing instrument. It's a brilliant creation. But if it's not brought under control by the higher intelligence, we might find ourselves thinking and also acting irrationally, which can make our life so miserable. And many people today, it's been observed, that they suffer from, it's a modern terminology, not commonly known, but it's called dysrationalia. It's the ability to think and behave rationally, despite, it's the inability, you could say, to think and behave rationally, despite possessing more than adequate intelligence and IQ. And this is one of the big problems in the world today. Of course, on a global scale, we can see that, despite man's attempts to utilize his advanced so-called rationality and intelligence to create this wonderful, successful social arrangement in the world, these powerful and mighty nations of the world are just staggering under mountains of social problems, economic problems, environmental problems. The world is in big trouble. So the Bhagavad Gita tells us that without superior information, without spiritual guidance, without developing this higher spiritual intelligence, society will not come up to a higher platform of understanding and performance. Therefore, Krishna declares that the intelligence guiding humanity must come from a higher source than man's. And this is why Krishna spoke the Bhagavad Gita. It was especially designed for the leaders of the world so they could direct society in the proper direction. So in our Bhagavat's Bhakti school, we learn that the whole process of self-realization is primarily aimed at changing our individual nature from material to spiritual. And this happens naturally when we purify our consciousness, purify our intelligence, purify our senses, purify our mind. And as mentioned in this verse, the best way to purify the consciousness and the intelligence, the senses, the mind, is to fix the mind on the Supreme Lord. Through chanting His holy name, through coming to the temple and meditating on His beautiful form, by thinking of His pastimes, by engaging in His service. We see that, just here at New Govardhana, the whole community is centered around the Supreme Lord. People are out there collecting flowers to make garlands for the Lord. People are cooking for the Lord. People are making nice arrangements to bring people here to fulfill the Lord's mission of proper spreading bringing people to Krishna consciousness, re-establishing people's relationship with the Supreme Lord. People are growing flowers and vegetables for the Supreme Lord. People are coming here and doing the puja and making nice arrangements for the Lord's pleasure. In this way, all these activities, they help to draw the mind, the consciousness, the focus on Krishna. This is Bhakti Yoga. And by practicing this Bhakti Yoga, these different processes, we found what it does, it strengthens our intelligence and it empowers us to neglect our lower tendencies. Okay, I'll just finish there because it's late. Does anyone have any questions? Jai Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki Shri Radha Govardhana Hare Krishna Balaram Lord Giraj ki Jai.